So on the webinar today, it's myself, Geoff Yates. I've got Tony Shally, our Managing Director, and he's been heading up the Brexit project since four years. And Rob Price, our customs go-to guy at Clearlight Customs, and he really does know all of any issues we have, we go to Rob for. He's a great guy to have aboard. So thanks for joining me today. Topics to cover: where we are now, what's happening next, the Goods Vehicle Movement Service, the GVMS, CFSP, PVA, rules of origin, return goods relief, and any questions that you may have at the end, and hopefully we'll have the answers for you. So a quick run of where we are now. We're over the initial Brexit pain of January. January was really the worst month of my professional career, and I hope it remains so. We had a lot of issues, a lot of teething pains. We're well over there now, and everything seems to be flowing quite smoothly. We have a free flow of imports at road ports such as Dover, so no trucks are being stopped in Dover. They're allowed to come straight in. There's no real customs checks. Very few trucks are being stopped. There's no import declarations required at Dover. Issues we had at inventory ports are all resolved. Inventory ports, so a truck goes on a list in an inventory port. It needs to be taken off that list. It needs a procedure to allow that to happen. And there's a lot of issues within the industry to understand how that works and how to get trucks released from inventory ports. The Kent Access permit has been scrapped. Tony and I spent an awful lot of time on the beta testing of the Kent Access permit. Come the end of April, that was scrapped. It was deemed not necessary. And I'm pleased to say it's plain sailing. I don't think my customs team are going to thank me for that image, but things are going pretty well. So what do we expect to happen from January 22? What's key here is that there will be no real change to regulations. We've had the border operating model, the version 3. We know what it's going to look like, but what will change is the application of those regulations. They will be tightening. The easements we have in place now will be stopping, but that's going to be sort of a stage stop. So we'll lead you through those today of what's going to happen and when. So Rob, if I can leave you with this one, please.
Yes, morning everybody. I'm Rob Price from Clearlight Customs. So we're an independent customs consultant, and as Geoff said at the outset, we support in the background Espace themselves and a number of their clients directly. So Geoff and Tony invited me on just to speak through some of the key customs points really, and we'll start with what's changing and when. And I think it's perhaps useful to think first about where the rules are coming from this year. So Geoff just mentioned that the border operating model is the Bible for this year in terms of the border in the UK. So if anybody really wants to get into the detail of imports and exports in the UK and what's changed and what is about to change, then if you search border operating model HMRC through a search engine, you'll find a couple of hundred pages of real detail, and that's what I'm going to base this the comments on this slide. So the border operating model had and always did have 3 stages. Stage 1 we've gone through already. That was January the 1st. Exports had to be pre-arrived. Exports was, if you like, the big bang to start with on January the 1st. That's happened. So if you're exporting out of the UK presently, stage 1 for exports has happened. Stage 1 for imports on January the 1st allowed a couple of options, and that's what we're going to focus on really, which is option 1 was the traditional import approach. That is, you do an entry at the port, let's say Dover. It can be presented and cleared within 24 hours of arrival. Duty and taxes are paid, and that's pretty much a standard import. The other option, though, that many clients have taken, and I know many of Espace clients have taken, more than half, is to delay declarations. That was an easement that was put in place on the 1st of January. And what that meant was that goods could keep flowing, but the key point was the detailed declaration and the payment of duty and tax and the finalisation had to happen within 6 months. So that made the border flow pretty well. But the first point on that slide there is that those first arrivals in January are now due for the supplementary declaration to be completed. So not necessarily a change, but it's a deadline that is right on us next week. So if you had arrivals in that first week of Jan and you've not done declarations yet, then you really need to act right now to complete your supplementary declarations. Stage 2 of the plan was always to a small change for products of animal origin. So within stage 2, that was originally scheduled for April. It was delayed by HMRC a few months ago. So now, 1st of October, a system called IPAFS kicks in, which is the import control system for animal food and feeds. So if you're involved in animal foods, feeds, and some food products, from October this year, the stage 2 of the border operating model kicks in, where you need to provide that information at the border. Stage 3 is really going to the full import border, and that originally was July the 1st, and now is going to be January the 1st, or effectively the 31st of December. What that means is that these easements that we're currently enjoying, and I use that phrase loosely, are going to end. So on the 1st of Jan next year, we are really going to see the full import border in the UK put in place. And what that will mean is that goods leaving the EU, so goods you're buying from Europe, will need to have a declaration at the point the vehicle boards the ferry, let's say in Calais. So that is quite a change that everyone needs to be aware of, that during this year we've had a relatively easy ride in terms of imports, and I know it's been painful for everyone, but January the 1st there is going to be a full import border in the UK, and that will be in the form of import declarations have to be done at the point the vehicle gets on board in Calais. That will be connected to the goods vehicle movement system, which I know Geoff's going to speak about shortly. So I think in summary, what we're saying is the immediate thing that's changing or happening is next week onwards, declarations have to be done for your imports if you delayed them. In October, for some products of animal origin and foodstuffs, you will need to declare them on IPAFS. And from January the 1st, so about 6 months away, we've got to prepare, we will have a fully operational import border in the UK, which will mean you need to prepare your declaration at the point the goods leave the EU effectively. That's just a quick flavour. And if you want the real detail in that, I would refer you back to the border operating model. So back to you, Geoff.
Super, thanks, Rob. Quick look then at the GVMS, the Goods Vehicle Movement Service. It's very similar to the French envelope system. Currently in France, we'll go to Calais again. If you're exiting Calais, you would create a master reference and you would upload any documents to that, or any document numbers to that. So for example, if you're running a groupage load and you've got 20 different MRNs, you would upload them to that one reference. And it would allow the driver then just to present one barcode at customs in Calais. That gets scanned. All of those consignments then get exited. So there's not a need for a driver to present 20 different documents. The GVMS will be very similar. It'll allow linking of multiple documents. They could be transit declarations, export declarations, import declarations. It'll all be under one. And this is one that I sent out to Northern Ireland. It will look like this, and this is what will be required to show at the customs exit points. So how will it change flows? As Rob's already said, there will no longer be free flow of imports. If you don't have an import declaration, your truck will get stopped. You won't be allowed into the port. All shipments need an export of some form, so that could be a simplified frontier declaration or a full import declaration. A GMR is what I've just shown you, a goods movement reference, and that will be scanned on entry in the EU ports, and goods will be cleared on the ferry then, unless they're under T1. Again, those T1s for imports that are coming inland to be cleared need to be attached to the GVMS. And vehicles could be stopped for inspection at UK ports. They're currently not being stopped. Very, very few trucks are being stopped, but they will be. Customers will be fully aware of what's on those trucks, and then may well choose some to be to have a look at. So what could the problems be? This is Manston Airfield from Christmas time with the COVID. we see, and unless we get this right now, we see this happening again. It'll happen both sides of the channel. We're allowing free flow of imports now. Calais will not allow their borders, their port to be full of trucks which aren't ready, and they'll have to be parked somewhere. So we want to stress really that unless we do the education piece now, we've got 6 months to prepare. This could well be a reality, which we really do want to avoid. So what are we at Espace doing about it? We're taking the same approach as we did for the Kent access permits. We have to assume it's going to be difficult for hauliers to register for all of these new systems. In a second language, it will be to navigate the government's websites. It could well be difficult. So we're going to be offering to set hauliers up themselves to allow them to log in and do their own declarations. And also we'll be generating standalone GMR. So we want to support our supply chain as much as possible, which will guarantee supply in the industry as much as possible. Rob, if I can pass you over again, please.
Yes, so and I'm going to talk briefly about one of the options that's available now and will be available in the future to importers. So Customs Freight Simplified Procedure, abbreviated typically to CFSP. So sorry for the acronyms and abbreviations. So CFSP, EIDR means Entry into Declarants Records. It's a existing customs simplification that allows importers and currently agents to relatively straightforwardly bring goods swiftly across a border. So rather than having a fully completed declaration prepared right at the border, CFSP allows you to present limited data at the border, allow the goods to move on to the customer, and then to complete the declaration at a future point. So EIDR means entry into declarants records, and it means somebody who's responsible for the goods, namely the importer typically, keeping a record of that arrival at the port. And the first point on the slide there is that Espace are currently doing just under half of all current imports coming into the UK during 21 under the easements are under this scheme. They're under EIDR, which was one of the key schemes that the government allowed traders to use more readily than normal during this year. And as you can see, perhaps 1 in 2 traders are taking advantage of that. But that does link back to the earlier comments I made that getting the goods in is great, but you are still committed to finishing the job, and you've got 175 days this year to do it. So cumulatively, each shipment that arrives, you have 175 days to finish the import job. So it's a 2-part declaration. First, you record the goods coming across the border and some critical bits of data. Secondly, you or your agent, like Espace, would complete a supplementary declaration, the full detailed entry. So I say this is not new. It's been in place several years, but it's been a heavy feature of the easements that the government offered. It's made it easy to get imports into the UK this year, but as we've alluded to, Geoff and I, things are coming to a head really by January the 1st next year, where collectively we all need to make sure we understand how we're going to get goods across the border next year. So today it's smoothing the crossings, and it did help most traders this year, that has to be said, because for most people, say 1 in 2 took up this option with Espace, it means that you have a smoothed approach. The goods still flow, the supply chain's maintained, but I do have to underline that that first deadline is coming around where supplementary decks have to be done. So you don't escape having import declarations, you just have a bit more time to do them. So that's happening right now. It's been a benefit this year, but I do know HMRC are extremely concerned about traders understanding their ongoing commitment to complete the EIDR task, which is to submit the supplementary declarations. And I'll underline, if you're not sure whether a declaration's been done, you should check. And I know that Espace have got capacity to help with that, to complete the declaration. So I'd urge you to look carefully about whether knowingly or otherwise you've been using CFSP EIDR. So that's this year, but things have been eased significantly this year. Next year, things are going to change. So January the 1st, there are going to be changes for CFSP EIDR. The biggest one really is about representation. What it means is that when Espace, for example, do a declaration today, they're doing it in your name. It means if something goes really badly wrong, you are responsible in terms of the payment for duties and taxes. But looking ahead to next year, that representation will change to a shared liability model, indirect representation. What that means in practice is that both the agent and you as the importer will be liable, which might be great for you as a customer or an importer, but I will warn that many agents are most concerned about that change, and that might drive a contraction in the availability in the market to carry on using this model. So it's a commercial matter for companies like Espace and many others in the market, but from experience, many import brokers like Espace and others are most concerned about sharing liability because that can be a very significant risk to the business. And I suppose there are options there that commercially you would come to arrangements with companies like Espace to look at the volume of trade, the value, the real world risk, and there could be a premium for continuing to operate in this way. The big thrust from HMRC is not that you continue necessarily using a broker like Espace, but you actually apply in your own right for your own approval for CFSP. That is something that businesses should consider. In my personal view, it is not a straightforward thing to do, but it's available. It's a rather complex and quite a long-winded application process, but can be done. We do a lot of work as a business supporting clients to get CFSP approval. And that's an option that I think you should think about. The alternative to that whole thing on this slide is that you just do fully cleared import declarations real time as they arrive. So you don't have to think about CFSP, but it does remain as an option beyond January next year. But predominantly if you apply to operate it yourself in your own name. There will still need to be a customs declaration at the border, even for CFSP. So it is not a panacea. It is not something I would recommend people take on board themselves lightly, but for some types of business, perhaps large volumes with a good grasp of customs requirements, CFSP is an option that you should think about now, because to get approved is, I would say, a 2 to 3 month piece of work. And if you are relying this year on EIDR, namely delaying your declarations, you really do need to have a direct chat with Espace or your broker to understand what the plan is going to be from January the 1st. So on that, back to you, Geoff.
Super, thanks, Rob. So the EIDR, as Rob's just said, there are a couple of alternatives. The first one to do is simplified frontier declaration followed by a supplementary declaration. We will need this SFD to get into the UK from Europe. There's also doing full import declarations. Now the benefits of this are goods are cleared on entry. We postpone the VAT. There's no VAT to pay on imports. There'll be no need to estimate your VAT on your return. Currently, we're doing a lot of CFSP. March was the first big deadline. Lots of phone calls from people. Have you done my March entries yet? I need to put my VAT return in. Actually, at that point, you need to be doing your doing estimates on what you've brought in. This would take away all of that. And any duty can be charged against your own duty deferment account, or you can apply for your own CCG. If you haven't got a duty deferment account, I recommend you do. And if you need some advice of how to get it, then just get in contact with me, and I'll gladly show you how and where to do that. At that point, Tony, are there any questions, please?
One second, Geoff. I don't think there are, actually, no.
Okay.
No. Rob just posted a link to the border operating model, if anyone's interested in it. No questions at the moment.
All right, super, thank you. So we'll move on to postpone VAT accounting. Had loads and loads of questions on this. First point is you don't need to apply to use it. You can already use it. You just need to make sure us as your customs agents or all your customs agents are aware that you want to use it. It's a field we've got to fill in, a field we've got to select on our import entries. It helps to manage your cash flow. There's a simultaneous pay and reclaim system. It's much cheaper to use PVA. There's no need to pay us for use of our firm's accounts. There's no need for you to pay VAT up front. So you can it just gets postponed as it suggests onto your quarterly bill. And as I've just said, sorry, it's the VAT shows on your online statements. There is no need to estimate it for your VAT returns. On to origins, Rob, please.
Yeah, so origin I'm only going to talk briefly about because it's a rather niche and complex subject in its own right. So just to give you the high level on origin, I'm sure everybody's aware that immediately before the Christmas break at the end of 2020, the UK and the EU signed a free trade deal. So there were lots of headlines on that day just before the Christmas break that said, good news, zero tariffs, zero quotas, everything's great. I think all of us in the trade knew that behind that sort of headline was quite a lot of complexity around customs origin. And customs origin is a very specific and legal term that reflects where the goods originated from in customs terms. So I draw the distinction. This is not where they're dispatched from, but this is a customs origin. An origin covers two broad areas. Non-preferential means can the goods come in, but I think most people are interested and focus on preferential origin, which means, yes, the goods can come in, but can I bring them in with nil or a reduced rate of duty? So for most industrial goods coming to the UK, they are covered by this Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA. The UK, by the way, has agreements with lots of different countries. You will have seen in the press, we're about to do a deal, it seems, with Australia. We've done one with Japan. We've got one with Switzerland, Turkey, etc., etc. But the focus here is on Europe. And broadly, these agreements work in the same way, in that attached to the agreement will be a list of products that are covered and the reduced rate of duty, which is often zero. But the key point is you only get the benefit of that reduced amount of duty, or zero duty, as it often is, as the importer, and when the origin can be proven. So if there is no statement of origin, you have no right to the reduced rate of duty. And that certainly has been a big issue for many, many importers, that both goods going out of the UK to your EU customers and vice versa. If there is no proof of origin with the shipment, then the full rate of duty will apply. So that's a very important point. And preferential origin is there to liberalise trade through the free trade agreement. And I say most industrial products are reduced to zero duty. But it is worth saying at this point as well, many industrial products are zero duty rate anyway. So for some of your products, you may not have to worry so much about applying the rules of origin because they may be duty free anyway. So that's always worth a look. So origin, I'll post in the chat some HMRC links and flows to help you with origin. But I think on the next slide, Geoff, we've got something about some practical steps of what you need to do. So the first thing is, if you're an importer, then you are reliant on your supplier marking their invoice with a statement of origin. If you don't have that on the documents, when Espace come to do your import declaration, be it that at the border or as a delayed declaration, then they're going to apply the full rate of duty to your import, which will make your product more expensive. You'll get a bill for that. And it is more complex to put it right after the fact than ensure that your suppliers provide a statement of origin where they're allowed to do so on the invoice. And that's a boilerplate text. You'll see it on the bottom of a commercial invoice, and your import broker, such as Espace, will recognize that and typically apply a zero rate of duty for you. The other way around of that is that if there is no statement of origin, you as the importer can say that you have reason to believe and evidence that the goods meet the rules of origin. So that's called claiming importer's knowledge. That wholly puts the onus on you, though, to have an audit trail, because it's almost certain HMRC will come back to you to check why you instructed the broker to use importer's knowledge. The clue's in the name. If you tell the broker to do that, you must have an audit trail from your supplier yourself about why you're making that claim. And from 22, that importer's knowledge, which is a temporary arrangement, will go away, and we will revert to the absolute need for documentary proof of origin, for example, on an invoice with a statement. So the statements are applicable up to €6,000. Anything over that, then the exporter in Europe needs to have an approval and what's called a REX number, a registered exporter number, to apply to that statement. There have been delays in getting some REX statements. And again, if you're trading in those higher value goods, then your shipper is certainly the first port of call to understand, are they making an origin statement? And if they're over 6,000, have they got a REX number, or have they spoken to their local authority to get one? As it says there have been some delays. I don't know whether, Geoff, you've got some practical examples of that, but I know there have been delays in understanding and getting REX numbers on the EU side.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob.
Back to you, Geoff.
Thank you. So just to run you through a typical example of what we're seeing almost daily, a GB trader will buy goods from the EU, but the EU supplier actually sources those goods from elsewhere, from the Far East, and they've paid EU duty once those goods have arrived. So the goods are held in stock, nothing's really happened to them, they haven't become part of a greater product, and they're then exported to the UK. What's key here is that they remain of Far Eastern origin though. So even though duty has been paid in the EU, duty is still payable on import in GB. So again, this goes down to having those conversations with your suppliers. If they can tell you where the goods have originated from, all of this could be made easier. You could have a look at bringing goods into bonded warehouses in the EU. They don't need to be imported at that point, and you only need to pay one rate of duty there. So we encourage you to go and speak to your suppliers about the supply chain. GSP, a general system of preferences, it's one to be aware of this. So it's a one-way trade agreement to support developing countries or lesser developed countries. What's key here, it's not a reciprocal agreement. So we say as Great Britain, we're willing to support, I don't know, an African nation in their exports. They don't have to support us. GB and EU both have the same GSP agreements, but they are not they're not running at the same time. So the UK does not have an agreement in place with the EU to allow traders to use a replacement proof of origin to redistribute GSP goods. So somebody in the EU, from Germany, for example, could import those goods from Africa. There's no duty to pay. When they're exported back to the UK, they're actually from of African origin coming in. There's no direct GSP agreement there, and the goods are dutiable. So again, it's worth just having a chat with your suppliers to have a look at their supply chain. DDP into Europe. We're having loads and loads of calls about DDP into Europe. In particular, fast parcel operators offering DDP service into Europe. We've looked into this and we believe that they're using their local depot as the importer of record. So for example, you're selling stuff, we had a lady a few weeks ago selling purses and they're sold from GB as DDP into Germany. Goods are sold DDP, the end customer don't have to do anything. The local VAT and duty is being charged back to the shipper. So that means that you can't, because you're not the importer of record as you should be under correct DDP terms, you can't claim back that VAT. So the only sort of way to get around this is by having your own EU VAT and EU EORI number. But a lot of people just aren't set up for, a lot of suppliers, fast parcel operators aren't set up to allow this to happen. We've got a couple of DDP solutions. Tony ran through a really good example last time out of VAT representation through France. We've also got the option to run fiscal representation through Holland and Belgium. Fiscal rep's a bit different. You need to put some money up front. That needs to be held in a bond in Holland or Belgium. Traders could have their own EU distribution centre. It involves holding stock, which obviously is expensive. It would involve having your own warehouse, your own inventory system. That may not suit a lot of people. We've been made aware of the last few months of Customs Regime 42, Regime 4200. And this is a temporary solution to allow you to sell DDP into Europe. So the example we look at is GB to Slovakia. Goods can be sold. What's key here, you've got to have a tax representative in France. So the tax representative can use their global VAT number. Goods would be exported into France. They would be cleared, customs cleared in France there, using the global VAT number. No VAT is then payable in the UK. No VAT or customs clearance is payable in Slovakia, and goods can then cross the borders in Europe without any charge, and it's DDP. It's your end customer don't see any bills for customs clearance or for VAT. What's key here though, R42 is a temporary measure, and we recommend that if you do want to have a look at this R42, then you have to have a look in tandem at setting up a VAT representation, getting a tax agent in France and doing it the correct way. The correct way to really do it is via VAT representation. And again, we can happily talk you through if you have any examples that need going through, and we can put you in touch with the correct people to do that. Return goods relief. Rob, could I leave you with this one?
Yes, so returns goods relief, again, this is nothing new, but it may be useful to some traders. So returns goods relief gives VAT relief, and in some cases duty relief on goods coming back to the UK in an unaltered state. I think that's the key point. So if you are sending goods out and they end up coming back to you, as long as they are not altered by the customer or potential customer overseas, excluding routine maintenance to keep them in the condition that they went out, then you can claim duty and in some cases VAT relief. So that's something that some clients may benefit from. So you don't need to pay duties and taxes if those goods come back on your own items. It's important that the goods were in free circulation in the UK when they're exported, and you would need proof of export. That's the other key thing. So that can be commercial evidence, so an airway bill perhaps, a proof of delivery overseas. Ideally, I would recommend you've got the GB export declaration on file. If you bring those goods back, the limit is 3 years. So goods coming back within 3 years can come back in duty and tax free usually. But there are a range of customs procedure codes. So this is not something that's routine, but it's not overly complicated. You don't need a customs permission to do this. So it's done at the declaration level when the goods come back. And there's a link there on the screen that's probably worth a read for those who are interested in it, or you can come direct to Espace or to me. Happy to have a chat about returns goods relief. So for some clients, goods coming back that that are being returned to them, this can save you paying the duty and tax again as a regular import.
Super, thanks, Rob. We're coming to the end of the presentation.
Just a question in the chat, since it's relating to this. Would this also include goods that are coming back to the UK after going out for warranty repair?
No, I'll draw a slight distinction there. So warranty repairs would come back. What the critical first step of warranty repairs is they have to be exported as goods for temporary export. So that's the key point here. So for warranty goods, you have to export them under a particular export CPC. When they come back for warranty, as long as you've got proof that this is warranty, i.e. a copy of the contract and the like, which you may have to present to customs to prove its warranty, then that is a separate procedure to returns goods relief. Its outward processing is the place to look. And I see it's Paul who's asked, and if Paul, you want to email me afterwards if there's a specific on that, happy to help.
Super, thank you, Rob. Just leave you on this one. It's one of my favourites, but by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. We've got 6 months to get all of these, all of our ducks in a row. We can start these conversations now. If you need any support, please do let me know. My details are here, along the web address of our customs clearance product. We've had a lot of people sign up to sort of guarantee their capacity here. We have guaranteed capacity for those people, and gladly we would happily speak to others. Again, any questions, just drop them into brexit@espaceglobalfreight.com. Rob is here as well, his web address there and email address. And just on to questions Tony, if there are any questions?
Sorry about the music in the background. I'm in a service station in Exeter. Couple of questions. GMR number for import before goods leave EU. Who has to demand it in case of groupage transports? One truck with many exporters, importers. Which IT system? How does responsible party get access? So a GMR really isn't, you don't need to worry about the GMR number for a groupage shipment. That will be sorted by the groupage operator in the EU. It's only really, you need to think about it for full loads or part loads coming in to make sure that the hauliers you're using are aware that they will need to populate this GMR, this sort of digital envelope, with an import declaration. So really it's mostly for people bringing full loads into the UK, not groupage. Another quick question, if our suppliers use their own freight forwarder in January 2022 to send goods, what information would we need to complete the declaration before arrival at the port? Assuming it's a DAP delivery into the UK, you are responsible for the UK import declaration. You will need to get a either simplified import declaration made or a full declaration made and get that digital declaration number over to the your EU exporter so that they can give it to the haulier so he can load it into the GMR without any form of UK import declaration in his GMR at Calais or Rotterdam or any port of exit. He will not be able to enter the port and get on a ferry. So you just basically need to get someone to do either a simplified import declaration or a full import declaration. And finally, just a question on talk about goods relief. Would this also include goods that are coming back to the UK after going out for, oh, done that one, sorry. Can we use this for returnable packaging items? Anyone?
Hi Tony, it's Rob. There's a separate procedure for returnable packaging. So if we're thinking about things like specially designed pallets and stillages and the like, if you search returnable packaging on HMRC or drop me a line directly, there is a procedure specifically that can manage returnable packaging. As far as I know, returns goods relief doesn't exclude that, but I think it might be quite, shall we say, easier to use the procedure designed specifically for returnable packaging, particularly if it's not marked in it and it's like a pool of equipment, which is often the case that you can't clearly identify it. That makes the returns goods relief procedure quite difficult to comply with. Hence, there is a special procedure for return packaging that HMRC refined only a couple of months ago. So that's the way I would point you. I think it was Claire who asked the question, to look for this specific procedure for returnable packaging rather than down the track of returns goods relief.
Okay, is there anything else, Tony?
No, that's it, Geoff.
Okay, super. So we'll wrap it up there. I thank you everybody for coming today. As Tony mentioned earlier, there will be a recording available when we'll email the slides to you, hopefully in the middle part of next week, and it will be available on our website, as are the previous 4. So thank you all very much. Have a good Friday, and yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you.